Hi, sisters. Welcome back to another episode of the Sisterhood Spotlight series, where I bring you a member of my personal and professional sisterhood who is super inspiring and doing amazing things in the world, and show you just how possible it is for you to do that as well and to create a really beautiful impact here. And today, I'm so excited to introduce you to my friend Julia. She is the founder of the Self-Love Formula, which is a website and a resource for millennial women who want their content delivered to them in a different way, in a way that everything has a positive underlying message and is super empowering. So welcome, Julia. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. This is great.
Of course. Thank you for being here. So let's get started and just dive right in. So what is it that prompted you to launch the Self-Love Formula in the first place?
So I originally started a dating and relationship blog about 3 years ago now, and that became the precursor to the Self-Love Formula. And looking back, getting that first site up was a substantial life step for me. I went through all the requisite pangs of self-doubt. Will they like me? Will they like my voice? Do I even have anything to say? Is anybody going to read this? So I probably stalled for about 6 months or so before I finally bit the bullet and went live. And then I realized that with each post, each time I published, it got easier and easier. The fear never totally fades, just as an FYI, but you get more comfortable. You get more comfortable going live with each post. So I was doing that, like I say, since August of 2012. And at the end of last year, my blogging practice had become a little stagnant. I was kind of bored. I wasn't really fired up the way that I used to be. You kind of fall out of love. The honeymoon stage is over and you fall out of love. And so I had a brainstorming session with my friend and really decided to expand and rebrand. And so in February of this year, I debuted the Self-Love Formula. And basically what was missing was that while I was covering dating and relationships, and that was a lot of fun for me, I was missing all the other lifestyle content that I love to cover: fashion, beauty, fitness, wellness, career, entertainment. And so that's what I expanded the site into, and it added some of those channels because they all supported my overall mission, which is to provide fun, relevant, invigorating, thought-provoking, positive lifestyle content for young women that cultivates a stronger sense of self-worth, self-respect, and obviously self-love in all areas. And then most recently, about 6 weeks ago, I left my full-time job to pursue this full-time because I realized I couldn't half-ass my way to the success that I wanted with this site. And so that's where I am now.
Oh, beautiful. I love hearing about people leaving their jobs. I think we celebrated that on our interview with each other last time when you were interviewing me. So still exciting. So what would you say? I know that a lot of the work that I do and you're in the same boat is about mission and impact. So what is the mission? What would you say if you could condense it down? I know it's really hard to do that, but if you could condense it down, what would you say the mission of the Self-Love Formula really is?
So the mission of the Self-Love Formula is to provide lifestyle content that young women love to read about. We all experience fashion, beauty, entertainment, career issues, love issues. We all experience those in some way, shape, or form. Whether it's high fashion or day-to-day casual, or luxury beauty versus the best drugstore finds you can get, self-employment versus corporate life. These to me are all universal languages that young women speak and hear. And what I found was that the media, and this is a hot topic these days, so I think the timing's pretty good here, but media speaks to women in a very narrow way. And it's usually detrimental to our self-esteem. It usually is propagating an unattainable image of perfection. and one that is probably not very healthy. And so this was something that I wanted to change. And that's why I got into magazine and digital publishing to begin with. I got into media because I knew I wanted to change these messages that women received from the mainstream, but shifting it from the inside out. And so I've been in media, traditional media, digital, print, since for about nine, almost 10 years now. And so I've seen it all. I've seen the photoshopping. I've seen the sexual objectification. The constant reminder that women endure a seemingly endless struggle to be viewed as socially accepted or attractive. And then the other part is there's a severe lack of transparency surrounding the relationship between editorial and advertising these days. So if you think that an editor is suggesting a beauty product on a beauty page, really, if you flip a couple pages down, you're going to see there's an ad for that exact same product or the same company. So the information that we're getting isn't all that pure. It's not always authentic. And it's not helping us in any way. And so that's really what I've always been fueled by. That's what I've always been propelled by. And so I wanted to bring that to life through the self-love formula.
I love that so much. One of the things I really love that you said was that you wanted to change it from the inside out, right? So like really getting to know the industry that you wanted to shift, and then bringing in your own mission and your own way of doing things after having known the way that they do function. And I feel like that's a really important piece for a lot of us, because when you do have a big mission and you do have a big dream, you want to make a big impact, you still have to know like how it is so that you can change it, right? Like you can't fix a car by not knowing how it works, right? Like you can't fix anything by not knowing how it works. So that's like the precursor. And I love that you touched on that, because that's so true. And I think that's something a lot of women, we have to keep that in mind, is like really, get into the industry that you want to change, even if it's not exactly the way you think it should be yet, but to learn it from the inside out is really helpful. It's such a good tip, especially for people who are looking to get into media or writing or anything that you deal with in, your field and the self-love formula as well. I think it's beautiful information and such a good reminder. So thank you for sharing that. And I also would love to know, I have a couple questions here that I wanted to make sure that I didn't forget. So I know you said you had a dating blog before, and it was all about, dating and love and all relationships. And I think that's such an interesting topic for a few reasons. One, because not a lot of people are talking about it in a way that is empowering and is targeted toward a millennial audience or a younger audience who, we're living in this age where Tinder is a thing, and there's so many things coming up around dating now that just weren't present before. And we have these, we text our people all the time before we meet them. And then it's like the magic is almost gone. At least that's how I've felt. So what do you think about how can millennial women date smarter, and what are the dilemmas that are facing today's millennial population?
Yeah, this is the $1 million question, right? So what I see is, I think we're all struggling with our roles in this modern world, right? There's more of us in college. We are sometimes outperforming our male counterparts in work or in school. There's a lot of shifts that have come with this kind of the post-women's lib movement, which is where we are now. And we're still striving. We have a long way to go when it comes to equality, and we're still getting towards it and working towards it. But while we have shifted in our professional life, or our intellectual life, I like to call it, there is there's a lack in our emotional life. So what I found and why I started the dating blog is all my friends, so smart, so successful, they're killing it in their careers, their friends, their family lives. They're just, they're very successful in a lot of ways. I like to say they have a high IQ, whether that be book smarts or just kind of like life intelligence. But when it comes to their emotional intelligence, their EQ, it's very low. And so when the focus shifts to the dating life and to the emotional life that they have to become successful at as well, everything gets sideways. And I think a lot of it has to do with the push-pull between the masculine and feminine these days in our modern world. We are told to become more masculine to get what we want in the boardroom or our careers, and when working with men. And then I think sometimes we try and apply that to our dating lives, and it just doesn't work. If you want to be the masculine energy in your dating life, you're going to receive feminine energy back, because there has to be a balance. There can't be both. I can't remember who, it might've been Patty Stanger, some matchmaker, some other dating experts said, no man wants to date himself. And, and I would venture to say there's women out there that don't also want to date feminine energy. And that's that was my experience, is I wanted a man, like, whatever, define that however you want, but somebody who's going to make you feel powerful in your womanhood, powerful in your femininity, powerful in your female strength, and in your strength as a person, and is not going to try to compete with you or detract from that in any way. And what I was finding is I was attracting men that weren't quite as like on their game as I was in life. And I didn't want that. I wanted my equal. And I heard this complaint from many, many women. So I think the masculine energy balance is a very difficult thing to navigate for a lot of people. And then also the other issue is effort. It comes down to effort. It is so easy these days to get a date, find new people, get laid. And so what happens is, men don't have to put out a lot of effort. You can swipe right and somebody is going to be, a half a mile away from you, and you can meet, if you agree to meet up, then you can meet up, and then you can even get laid. I mean, there's a whole story about the mechanisms of Tinder and how it's kind of derailing the entire dating culture. I believe it was the New York Times. It was really sad for me to read. Now, what ends up happening is then it becomes our responsibility, the woman's responsibility, again, to step in and say, well, no, that's not good enough. I don't want to be a right swipe and a 15-minute meetup and, and a hit it and quit it. You may feel as if that's all that's being offered to you. And so then you settle for that. But you have to trust that there's more out there. You have to get very familiar with what you really want. And and listen to your intuition. And if at any point, if you're on a date with somebody, or you meet somebody new, or you're in the beginning stages of courtship, if at any point your intuition is saying, hey, this guy doesn't fit what you want, he's not gonna fulfill your emotional needs. Because when I say figure out what you want, I'm not talking about he needs to drive the nice car and he has to make enough money and he has to do this and look like this and blah, blah, blah. No. How is he going to make you feel on the inside? Is he going to make you feel like a rock star? Is he going to support you? Is he going to listen to you? Is he going to cherish you? Whatever your emotional words are. At any point in the dating process, and trust me when I say this happens almost immediately, I would say within 2 weeks of meeting somebody, you could figure out whether or not he's going to fit and fulfill your emotional needs. If at any point he does not, you just have to be able to walk away. You have to trust yourself and respect yourself to walk away. Doesn't matter what your friends are going to say. Doesn't matter what he's going to think. Doesn't matter what your parents are going to think. It doesn't matter. In your heart, he's not it. And so you save yourself a lot of time. You save yourself multiple relationships and multiple bad dates by just cutting it off. But that is very, very difficult to do. And I understand that.
So what do we do instead? Tell us. So how do we, I'm curious to know, because this is such a good topic. I think so many people are wanting to know how to do this, because it seems like something that should be so intuitive and we should know how to do and not have to think about it or not be told. But then somehow when we're in it, it feels really tough. Right?
Yeah. So when you're in that emotional state and your ego is tied to it, I liken it to always wanting to win. That's what I would say. Like even if I didn't like a guy and even if I knew he wasn't going to fulfill my needs, I still wanted him to like me. It's like getting a double tap on your Instagram page. It's the same thing. It is. It's
so true.
It is. It's external validation. And so you have to let go of the need to be externally validated and know that the internal barometer that you're working with, your intuition and your list of emotional needs that you know you need, internal validation has to be enough. And I say it's very difficult because our entire world thrives on external validation. Social media as a whole is built on the need for humans to feel like they need to be externally validated. So, but happy and fulfilled living comes from internal validation. So it's, and this happens in all areas of life, and dating is one of them too. It's kind of like finding your life's purpose and being able to make decisions that keep you aligned with that in your career. Same thing with dating. This is where you can apply career practices to dating. Know what it is, what your purpose in dating is. Do you want somebody that is going to support you? Do you want a long-term relationship? Do you not want a long-term relationship? Do you know that you've got too much going on in your life right now and all you want to do is connect with an amazing guy that's going to light your soul on fire and your body on fire too for like 3 months, and that's fine. And you don't have to answer to anybody about that, but going into it that that's what you want. So really getting clear on what it is you want and being honest with yourself. I don't think everybody's all that honest. So what I did, I have a worksheet on my website that you can download to help you. But I did an exercise years ago to determine and whittle down what my top 5 relationship needs are. Because you only need 5. You could have a list of 20, but when it really comes down to it, you only need 5. And those are things like respected, heard, unconditional love, honesty, stuff like that. Feelings, ways that you want to feel in the relationship. So when you focus on the emotional needs, what you'll notice is all the superficial stuff falls away. Like, I don't need to have a long-term relationship or be married in order to feel respected, heard, validated, whatever in my relationship. If I meet a guy and he does all that for me for 3 months, I'm going to have a great 3 months, and then then it will have come to a close and we're going to move on, and that's that. But you can't be forcing something. And when you know what it is you really want and you're really only invested in that and focusing on that, truly focusing on that, all the other stuff is going to fall away. And you'll see, if a guy texts you 15 minutes before he's heading out with his bros and he's like, hey, we're going to be around the corner, why don't you meet us there? And one of your emotional words is prioritized. Nope. You need to delete that message, because if he's not making you feel prioritized from the beginning, guess what? never going to change. That's the other thing I think a lot of people hope for, is that it'll get better, or if they do something different or act a different way, he'll change, it'll get better. He's gonna plan a date when he's never planned a date in his life. Like, oh, but maybe once we get into a relationship and he sees how I plan so many things for us, then he'll take the hint and do it. No, not going to happen. Why would he? He's got you to plan everything, So focus on what you want. First of all, figure out what you want, focus on it. I mean, carry the list around with you if you want to. Put it on your phone. Take a screenshot of it and put it on your background of your phone, so you're always reminded of what it is that you're looking for. And anytime a guy does not hit those, 4 out of 5 or 5 out of 5, no thanks. It's a big old no thanks.
I love how clear cut you are with these instructions, because I feel like a lot of dating advice or a lot of relationship advice or a lot of lifestyle advice in general is very like, oh, but this and maybe this, but if this, then this, and it's very like, it's like a spectrum. And I like how clear cut you are. And if it's not this, then it's no. Like, stop. Don't let yourself fall into that trap. And I think that's what a lot of us need to hear, because it is so easy to fall into that trap, because we do have that tendency to be like, oh, well, maybe he'll change, or maybe the circumstances will change, or maybe he's just in a rough spot right now. And, we make excuses for the other person as to why they don't fulfill what we're looking for. And then we have that attachment to them. And then it becomes this bigger monster to deal with, and it's not easy to walk away.
Right.
So
exactly.
I love that.
Yeah. Again, like, there is a spectrum for everybody, but when you focus on what you need out of it, the physical falls away. It doesn't have, nothing has to be nothing has to look conventional if you don't want it to. It can be any way. It can develop in any way that you want, as long as your emotional needs are being fulfilled, because that's what's going to make you happy. And when you're happy, when you get centered in that, guess who shows up? The right guy. He does. You may have to weed through a couple to really fine tune what it is you're putting out there. But trust me, he shows up, and he shows up fast as soon as you get centered in that.
That's so cool. I feel like I need to work with you around this. So how would you say that your personal and professional, I guess your professional history with, this dating site and blog and coaching that you've done, and this knowledge of the media industry, how have those come together for you and kind of melded? How have those contributed to what you're doing now with the self-love formula?
Yeah, absolutely. So like I mentioned, getting into media was just to learn what I needed to learn, and to start, cultivating a skill set that I knew I would use later. Because the really big dream that you never tell anybody until you're actually closer to doing it, was to create like a massive Oprah-sized movement, but for millennials and around self-love in general. And so communications was always my vehicle. And so I've delved into various forms of communication, from writing to marketing to PR and so on. So I have the hard skills: conceptualizing and organizing a story idea, interviewing, which is really important, researching, writing. And that really helped me create a voice. And as we all know, having a unique voice and really sticking to that and amplifying that is what will set you apart from a branding perspective in a very saturated online world. So I knew that was kind of my cornerstone, my voice. And then also, the best gift I walked away from through being in communications and being in the media and, I did a little bit of PR as well, were my social skills. So it's funny, I call myself, I'm an introvert living in an extroverted world. And most people, when they meet me out, they're like, no way, you're an introvert. And it's like, no, I like to sit at my desk and write. And I gather a lot of energy from that alone time. But being in media, you're at events, you're meeting publicists all the time. You have to go to events by yourself. You are forging new relationships and building an authentic network. So I really came out of my shell. I don't know, over the past 5 years or so after going through this. And that has created better interviews. I get great feedback from people that I've interviewed with. And now it's kind of feeding into the next phase, which is video and doing more video content, and live speaking and live interviews, live Q&As, because I've been able to create a persona that is me, and is also can deliver the message that I have to in a fun and entertaining way.
I love that. And it's so true. I mean, I think from where I'm sitting, you're totally going to have that big dream too. That Oprah-sized revolution about self-care for millennials, because we need to hear it. And especially, I think, with dating, I think what you've said in this interview alone is more valuable than anything I've heard from multiple sources all over the internet, from people, coaches, all these things. It's like, you're golden. So I'm excited to see where this goes.
Thank you.
Yeah, exciting. What was the other thing I was going to ask you about? Oh, if for people who are, or women specifically, who are looking to create something like what you've created, or a media content outlet, or some kind of online resource, or something that is in service to other people through content, what would you recommend to them to be their first step or a couple steps that you've found helpful in your journey?
Sure. So the main thing that I always say and recommend to other people is, before you even worry about a URL or branding or a WordPress template, you have to get familiar with your why. You have to be familiar and obsessed with your why. It's the purpose. It's what drives you. It's your passion. Why do you want to do this? What void do you want to fill? What's missing out there? And how can you contribute to that? Because what happens, and I mentioned this in my own journey, you have all this fiery passion at the beginning, and you get going, and it's amazing, and like you publish your first post, and you have your first couple of hits, and it's awesome, and people are sharing it, and you're riding high on that, and then you find out real quick that it is very repetitive. You have to keep doing that, and the same thing that worked for the first post is not going to work for the 15th post, and you have to keep getting creative and keep coming up with new ways to create awesome content, and then getting it in front of other people, because they're not going to come to you. You have to go to them. You have to find them. So when you have a purpose and when you have a why that's very powerful and that's very motivating, you can always come back to that. So when you're feeling bored or when you're feeling stagnant, you come back to, okay, why did I do this in the first place? Who am I helping? Who am I in service to? What do they need from me? And from that, you can create kind of the next wave of content. And that's probably the biggest thing. And then the other thing that I mentioned earlier is, honoring your voice, honoring the way that you are bringing this into the world, because you're not going to reinvent the wheel. Nothing is new, and there are probably 1,000,002 people out there doing something similar, or at least it can feel that way. But know that you are the only person with the set of life experiences that you have in the life stage that you are in, and with the viewpoint that you have. You're the only one. So own that. What is it? do you feel about it? How do you talk about it? What is it that, you know, that your friends are always like, oh man, like you should be like writing about this, or you should be like, this is a great idea, or like, what is the conversation that keeps coming up all the time, or the topic that keeps coming up all the time? Like, and how do you talk about it? Because that's what's going to set you apart.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many people I've coached around that specific issue of, who am I to say this, or who am I to put this out there, or who am I to share this content or these ideas or whatever, or who am I to create this movement, or who am I to do XYZ, right? Like a million things, whatever it is. We always have that fear of like, oh, well, what makes me qualified to do this? And we almost anticipate that other people will think that same thought, like, oh, who are you to do this? Who are you to talk about this? And it's like, everybody is entitled to talk about whatever they want to talk about, because they have a unique set of experiences. And I love that you touched on that. So thank you for that.
Sure.
And then I'd also love to know, as I do in all of my interviews, so you mentioned that creative flow and nurturing that creative flow and creating the space for that to happen and coming up with new and original content all the time. So how do you take care of yourself so that you can be the vessel for creation of all of those amazing things that you put out? What does your self-care look like?
I think that's such an important question. And it's funny, I was at a luncheon for bloggers and media yesterday, and I was having this exact conversation. A girlfriend of mine is a freelance writer, and she got totally burned out at a project, and she came to the conclusion recently, like as of last week, she was like, I'm just gonna let it go. It's just one of these, right? Like, I'm done. This is not healthy. You know, I'm burned out. I'm stressed out. My adrenal system is shot. I'm exhausted all the time. I gotta let it go. And it's funny, that's very much the space I find myself in now. When I left the magazine job that I did about 6 weeks ago, it just felt very much like this is what I am supposed to be doing. I have no idea what comes next, like none. But I mean, I knew what I wanted, but I didn't know how it was going to show up. And I was like, doesn't matter. It's just going to show up. I think the older you get and the more you move towards your purpose, right? Because we talked about this when we talked last time. You described it very accurately as an axis. So your purpose is your axis, and then you zigzag over here, then you zigzag over here, and you keep crossing it until at some point in your life you're like, okay, I'm done. We've done enough of this. And once you hit right on it and land it, this like sense of, okay, yeah, this is right. I have no idea how it unfolds, but this is right, and it's okay, and I'm not going to be worried about anything. And it's so funny, like every little kind of bump in the road, I'm just like, all right, what's next? What's next? I'm going to stay open to what's next. I know what I want. I've written down my intentions. I know what I want. I'm going to stay open to what's next. And this is somebody who like has had major anxiety, like stress beyond stress. Like I was losing my hair earlier this year, because I was so worried about getting back on purpose. So I'm not somebody that takes anything lightly. So for me to be able to do that really indicates to me like, okay, this is where I am. This is what I'm doing. And it's important. There's no point to stressing out about something. You just have to stay focused. It's like dating. You got to stay focused on what it is that you want and what's being fulfilled. So, and as far as the creative side, I get so pumped when I publish a post, and it takes me a long time to publish a post. I mean, I'm a writer. I sit down. It's like having a baby every time. I'm birthing this every time. and I'm writing 5 times, I'm doing 5 posts a week, and that's a lot. Like it's a lot of writing. It's a creative dump every time. And so it takes a lot out of you. So I don't always want to sit down and write, it comes with a lot of self-discipline. The way I focus is I remember what the other side feels like. I remember that as soon as I publish the post, and as soon as that link goes live and I shoot it out to my socials, and it has nothing to do with whether or not anybody reads it. I mean, that's not what it is. It's not how many people liked the Instagram post that corresponds to it. It's not how many people retweeted anything. It is literally the act of putting it out there. I get so pumped and so amped after that I could dance party my way for the next 30 or 45 minutes. That's what I remember. I remember that. When I sit down and there's a blank screen, I'm like, okay, you're going to be like jumping up and down in about an hour or 2 hours from now. That goes back to your why, right? That's the passion. That's the thing you have to keep rekindling all the time. So that's like very, very powerful. And then one final thing is, I would say, getting people around you that support you and believe in your vision is huge. I recently have a business partner and a couple other women in my life that have agreed to help me with the video production, which, can I just say, is, mind-blowing to me and so beautiful and so wonderful. I had a moment the other week where I was just like, these women believe so much in what I'm doing and who I am that they just want to give this to me. I'm not giving them anything back. I'm not giving anything to them in return. I mean, we're sharing the content, they get to delve into their creative sides by helping me as well. So there's obviously some reciprocity, but outright, I'm not giving anything to them. And I sat in that for a moment, because that was eye-opening. That might be one of the first times that I just really felt like somebody wants to give something to me and they're not asking for anything in return. And so there are people out there that support you and support your vision and want to be that for you. And finding those people is really helpful.
Mm. I love that. One of the things that came up for me when you were talking about remembering what it feels like on the other side is this idea of, we have 2 competing fears throughout our whole lives, like 2 primary fears that are in competition with one another. One is the fear of insignificance, and the other is the fear of failure. And I feel like, if we can develop a healthy relationship with the fear of insignificance, which was perfectly demonstrated in what you just shared about remembering what it feels like to just put something out there and to be moving toward your mission and your purpose and just sharing that, even if no one reads it, it doesn't even matter. Instead of like, oh, well, if I don't put this out, or if I do put this out, I could be judged or criticized or whatever. But instead going the opposite way and saying, if I don't put this out, I won't get to celebrate and it won't be moving me closer to what I'm working toward. That's beautiful. And that's what we all need to remember when we're creating. It's so important. It's just that, and that's such a big, it's like an overspilling thing that we deal with, right? Like if we can develop that in one area, then we can learn to do that in every area of our lives. And it becomes so much more fulfilling and so much more powerful.
Right.
And I think what you just said about having other women who believe in your vision was a perfect lead into my next question, which was, what is the role of sisterhood in your life? And how do you, what does that look like? And do you have any advice for people who are looking to build that in their own lives, or to find those people who are, on board with their vision? What does that look like for you? And if you wouldn't mind sharing some of that, I'd love to hear it.
Sure, of course. So, sisterhood is an interesting concept in my life because I wouldn't say that growing up, my connections to other women were all that strong. I had one brother, and I just kind of identified with, I felt like it was always easier to get along with guys. And I have you mentioned my directness. I can be extremely direct. And when I was younger, before I knew how to be a little bit more diplomatic in my delivery, it can come off as very like aggressive and masculine, and I'm cool with that. It works for comedic reasons and in other ways. But I had to kind of learn that. And I wanted to share that because I hear that from some women, how it's, there's more to consider sometimes in our female relationships, because we absorb things differently than men do. It's not quite as black and white as men are. And that's great. It's awesome. Because it means we're thinking, we're critically analyzing, we're being intuitive. And I love that. I love that in myself, and I love that in other people. But really I think it's very interesting that I have found my purpose in helping specifically other women. And through my writing and through really tapping into certain pain points of this group, I've really started to kind of open up, and it's more about opening myself up to that and probably honoring more of my feminine side to that, or honoring more of my feminine side and putting that out there, and being more and more the authentic woman that I want to be, because she communicates effortlessly with all women. That my authentic self does. So in my mind's eye. So really, really kind of owning that and feeling what that feels like and knowing what that feels like was integral to me kind of starting to develop some of these relationships. And I can't tell you how awesome it is when you meet somebody who's like-minded and can sit across the table from you, and you don't even have to really say anything, but she just gets you. That's what it's like with my current business partner now. And it helps you believe in yourself even more. It helps you believe in your vision. It reminds you that there are you're doing this for a reason and a good reason, and there's other people out there that do need you and do want you to be you and put yourself out there. And it's one of the most powerful experiences I've ever been a part of. And every time my business partner, she's not a partner on this. She helps collaborate with me on the site, but we're also starting a fashion line. So that's what we've partnered on. Every time we have a meeting, every time we have a phone call, I get reinvigorated. It's like publishing a post, that like amped up feeling, that high energy. That's what I get when I talk to her. And that's what it should be. If there's anybody in your tribe or circle that doesn't do that to you, or you can't do that for them, you should maybe create a little bit of a boundary, because when you're trying to be authentic and push your purpose, you cannot have anybody that's derailing you from that, or that's in conflict from that. Not anybody super close. And that's also a part of the process. In order to find some of these more authentically aligned women in my sisterhood, I had to create more space for them, which meant limiting my relationships with people that were draining, that maybe didn't have a clear vision of where they were going in life, because you'll find that a lot. And it's interesting. I haven't had much of a experience with naysayers. I think that comes up a lot when you read about entrepreneurs or people that have big ideas or want to do big things. I haven't very often had anybody come to me and say, well, that's a really dumb idea. Like, good luck trying to be the next Oprah or whatever. Which, and it's funny. I'm almost like, well, man, maybe my idea is not big enough. Maybe I should get crazier. But the way it's been presented is that maybe they're saying they believe in me, and they probably do, but their own lives don't. What they're doing in their own lives is not kind of aligned with what I'm doing in mine. And so you'll see that as you're trying to move forward from an energetic perspective, staying on your purpose, making tough decisions that keep you on your purpose, you're gonna kind of move forward, and they're just kind of gonna stay here, and you're gonna start to feel the weight behind you, and you're gonna feel the pull behind you. They're not going to understand that you can't meet them out for drinks. They're not going to understand that you can't take a 3-hour lunch. They're not going to understand that, you can't hop on the phone for an hour because, yeah, you may be working from home, but you're sitting there working all day, all night, 7 days a week. So it's been really interesting. And I love it. Like, I absolutely love it. Finding this tribe and these people that believe in what I'm doing and are doing similar things.
Yeah, I think that's so important. One of the things that you said was, almost that, I heard this the other day too, so I want to bring it up and just kind of tie it in, is that when you're doing something big, when you're becoming great, when you're pursuing mastery, when you are pursuing your purpose, right? Your group of people around you will first shrink, and then it will expand again. And it's almost like just sort of weeding out those people, or, kind of like cutting off the stagnant energy, so that you don't need to feel like you have to pull that with you along on your journey, but you can be, free. And then the other people who are also at that level of freedom will come in and support you and lift you even higher. And I think that's one of the most important things about sisterhood, is like, we rise together so much faster, so much more powerfully, so much more energetically, right? Like in every way, we're rising together so much more powerfully and so much faster, and like more fulfilled than we could have ever imagined or we could ever have on our own. And that's just one of the most, sisterhood has been such a common thread for me. And I even I was reminded the other day, I was home and looking through old pictures, and I was reminded of like, wow, I really have had this, it really has been a common thread. Like, even throughout, elementary school, junior high, high school, like I had this group of women around me who were cheerleaders. Like, we were all cheerleaders together. And it sounds so silly to think of it that way, but we really were, there for each other, and we were that tribe, and we were that sisterhood. It just looked a lot different than it does now for me. But in the same way, we were literally cheering each other on, and we had to be positive, and we had to be a team, or else things wouldn't work out. And it's almost that same mentality now, but it's just a little bit different and a little more developed and a little more spiritual, and a little, we're all doing different things. The goal is not to get into this really intricate stunt, but it's rather to like create the lives and the businesses and the types of careers and be on purpose with our lives. But it's still the same kind of dynamic, and it's really cool to witness that common thread. So how can people really get in touch with you if they want to know more about the self-love formula, or what kind of opportunities do you have coming up? Maybe touch on the vision as well for the next year. What do you see coming up? I know, like you mentioned, and I feel this way too, it's, it's almost like, okay, I know this is right, but in terms of what's coming, I don't know entirely, and that's beautiful and awesome. So yeah, if you could just tell us a little bit about how people can get in touch with you, what you'd like them to get in touch with you about, if there's anything specific that you're looking for at the moment that we can help support you with. And then I forget what the last thing I said was, but I think you heard it. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you can visit the site at theselfloveformula.com. Again, there's new content up every day. And then in terms of reaching out to us or getting in touch, all of our social media is just at selfloveformula. And then you can email me at julia@theselfloveformula.com. I do coaching. I do relationship coaching. And really what it is, it's really fun. I have 4 and 8 week programs, and they're called they're accountability programs, essentially. So we figure out what your goals are for love. And we go back to what I was talking about, figuring out those relationship needs and how we can keep you on track with those. And then I basically just become like a really awesome best friend who checks in with you every week and makes sure that you're not texting the ex, you're not Facebook stalking, or you're really working on some exercises that I'll give you and tools that I'll give you to help keep you focused when you're dating. But basically, I check in and we set the goals. I help you work towards the goals. And then I check in and make sure that you are doing what you're doing, but also feeling supported in this. And I've had a lot of success with my clients and a lot of fun. Because I at the end of the day, I think that's what it needs to be. Like, you need to feel good while doing this. And it's really cool. I've almost always at that 4-week point, like, somebody's having a breakthrough. It's like, oh man, that's what I've been doing, or that's the limiting belief that I've had that have kept me like attracting the same guy. So if you go on the site, you'll see those. There's 5 different packages. There's the breakup blast through, the Mr. Big cleanse, the limiting beliefs eraser, and the first date dissection. So go on there, you can read the descriptions, or there's a custom one. If you have a different kind of issue that's plaguing you, we can work through that as well. You can also contribute to the site. We love guest contributions. It helps raise your profile. It gets you in front of an audience of your peers, and it gives you a voice. So feel free to check out the guidelines there. It's just the selfloveformula.com/contributors. And what else? You can sign up for the newsletter. If you sign up for the newsletter, which is on the homepage, you'll get that download that I talked about, the ways to figure out your top 5 relationship needs, which is really helpful and takes 30 minutes or less. So that's also awesome. But yeah, and if you just want to reach out to me and have a conversation, please do. I'm happy to talk with anybody and everybody. So yeah.
Beautiful. Oh, that's so fun. I love the names of your packages. I want to go look at them now and be like, what do I need? Yeah, beautiful. I have a few people in mind, actually, that I feel like will watch this video and will definitely want to contribute. So I'll probably reach out to them and tell them about you personally, just so that they can remember to contribute to your site, because I think what you're doing is amazing, and I'd love to support you in any way possible. And I think everyone who's watching this is probably going to feel the same, because we all know that these are big issues that we're faced with as women today, and definitely things to work through and to, work through in order to add more fulfilled, beautiful things to our lives. So awesome. Thank you so much for being here today.
Awesome. Thank you. It's been amazing. I really appreciate it.
Beautiful. So for all of you watching, be sure to get in touch with Julia in any way that feels aligned for your purpose, and be sure to tune in next time for the next episode of the Sisterhood Spotlight series. Thank you all so much for being here. Have a beautiful day, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.